Hello everyone, Commish K7 here with your 2019 SRG Fantasy Football League Week 7 update. This is a bit of a special one because we are now officially past the midpoint of the season. Got a whole bunch of things to go through in addition to some stats at the end of it. So without further ado, let's get right to it. And boop, there goes that. And let's just bring myself all the way down here. There we go. All right, let's start off with the Sniper's Edge Darkstalkers versus the Planet Hulk World Breakers. In a very anticipated matchup, the Sniper's Edge Darkstalkers took advantage of an injury to Patrick Mahomes to take this one 125.9 to 96.3. Let's see if anything notable happened. Well, as I mentioned before, on Thursday night, Patrick Mahomes went down with a pretty painful knee injury. So his points were cut pretty drastically, whereas he was expected to do 24, but the injury shortened it to only 9.2. And given how early in the game that happened, that's a pretty good score for someone who left early. But Darren Waller made up for a lot of slack with a 32.6 point performance. But unfortunately, the rest of the team, while they did relatively decently, there were some underperformers. Like the Bears defense didn't do too well. Mahomes went off with an injury. And Marlon Mack basically almost did like a little bit over half of what was expected. And as we know, Mahomes went down with an injury. So let's see what went right for the Darkstalkers. Aaron Rodgers went ballistic in this game today, posting a 54.8, which pretty much made up for all the bye weeks that the Darkstalkers were going through this week. Whereas his ace in the hole, Christian McCaffrey, was out on a bye, along with DJ Moore and their tight end, Vance McDonald. So that 54.8 saved this team from a very unfortunate loss. Another good performance, we had the Rams defense finally realizing that they're a football team again, and probably with the addition of I forget who it was, but they added someone on the defense, which definitely helped because they put up a 24.5 performance against the Atlanta Falcons. Unfortunately, though, the rest of the team really didn't do too well. In a golden opportunity, given Mahomes went down, Miles Sanders didn't do too well. Leonard Fournette, while still a very good performance, did not meet his expectations. Keenan Allen didn't meet it. Alshon Jeffrey didn't meet it. A goose egg from a rather anticipated pickup in Luke Wilson. Now that he's the number one tight end in Seattle. But yeah, Aaron Rodgers carried this team to a big bye week depleted 125.9 to 96.3 victory. Anyone on the bench could have helped? Well, Marquez Valdes-Scantling could have definitely helped the World Breakers given the performance of Aaron Rodgers, but it's 23.3 points on the bench. A 29-point performance by Jared Goff is on the bench, but with Patrick Mahomes playing as he was, having Goff on the bench was not too surprising. And a good performance by Jimmy Graham, but as you can see, also on Green Bay. So unfortunately, none of the Green Bay players that the World Breakers had could have taken advantage of Aaron Rodgers' performance, being that they were on the bench. Now let's see for the Darkstalkers. Could anyone have helped? Why, if he just simply replaced both of his wide receivers with Devontae Parker and Chris Conley, his score would have been better. So that 125.9 could have actually been better. But it is what it is, and that's the score. Up next, we have Prettyboy Snow versus the Moneymaking Dollar Boys. Prettyboy Snow has been riding rather highly with a 5-2 record thanks to a lot of very fortunate victories. Whereas he seems to be facing teams that either are depleted by injury or bye weeks. Or his opponents just seem to not perform against him. But it seems that his luck had run out. And I said 5-2. I meant 5-1, but 5-2 after this week. So either way, the Moneymaking Dollar Boys take this one with a nice performance of 124.2 to 58.7. Let's see what happened. Well, only one thing went right for the Prettyboy Snow. Well, correction. 2 things went right. Hunter Henry had a fantastic performance, who he just obtained via trade, I believe. And Saquon Barkley has returned. But he did not meet his expectations because I think they were being a little cautious with him. So I have a feeling that his points will increase as the weeks go on now that Daniel Jones is the quarterback and he's the running back. Giants should be doing a little bit better in the coming weeks. But unfortunately, everyone else played like crap. Now for the Moneymaking Dollar Boys, pretty much the opposite happened. Almost everything went right. 35-point performance by Jacoby Brissett, 28.9 performance by Dalvin Cook, 23-point performance by Michael Thomas, and his kicker, Kaimi Fairbairn, put up twice his expected score with a 12. However, he was able to survive a goose egg by Delaney Walker and a -0.5 point by the Eagles defense. So, anyone on the bench could have helped? Oh, certainly for Prettyboy Snow. Austin Eckler, thought to be taken over by Melvin Gordon. Looks like it seems to be a timeshare again. And Eckler definitely did better this round with a 27.5 point performance. Unfortunately, it's on the bench. So, and also Teddy Bridgewater, 22.9, definitely did better than Daniel Jones's 4.5. So, and AJ Brown could have been a better choice than Galladay. Kiki Kuti, better performance than Galladay. Ravens defense, better performance than the Texans versus Indianapolis. So, that 58.7 could have been a lot better. So, let's see anyone on Moneymakers could have done any better, which, well, maybe. The Redskins defense could have been better than the -0.5 of the Eagles defense. Let's see. Any tight ends? Noah Fant. Well, that 1.7 would have certainly been better than a 0. And Matthew Stafford with a 35.6 performance actually matched Jacoby Brissett, but it was on the bench, so doesn't matter. And either way, Moneymaker Dollar Boys take this one with a resounding victory of 124.2 to 58.7. Up next, we have another major blowout with the Shaggy Sharks versus Feelin Chubby, with the Sharks taking this one 128.4 to 51. That, I believe, is a 77-point margin of victory. That's pretty damn good. Let me just see something here. Hold on. Yeah. Yep. Something for later. 77-point margin of victory, which is really good. All right, so let's see what happened. What went right for the Shaggy Sharks? Well, a 43-point performance for Melvin Jones Jr. went right. 23.5-point performance by the Patriots defense went right. But then again, when you're facing the Jets, is what it is. Which, yeah. Remember my comment on Prettyboy Snow? Yeah, Snow's pretty much the Patriots of this league, where they just seem to keep facing underperforming teams or teams that aren't very good at all. But yeah, bad performance by Kerryon Johnson. But then again, he's hurt and I believe out for the rest of the season. Good performance by the kicker, and yeah, those are your notable performances for the Sharks. And let's see what went wrong for Thielen Chubby. And every single player went below their expectations, with the highest point total is a 15.3 by Julio Jones. Everyone else is in the single digits. So let's see if any replacements could have been made. Manuel Sanders would have been a better improvement, who will be a much better improvement going forward, being that he is now away from probably the worst starting quarterback in the league. Now that Eli's gone, Joe Flacco has that mantle, I believe. So let's see, anyone else? Duke Johnson would have been a better choice than Kerryon Johnson. And yeah, that's about it. And for the Thielen Chubby, well, he pretty much could have thrown in any one of these other players, and it would have been a better score. So this was a major mismanagement for Thielen Chubby, who got hit really hard by the Shaggy Sharks, 128.4 to 51. Up next, Team Brooks versus Grumpy Groupies, with another wide margin of victory, with the Groupies taking this one 109.2 to 61.5. Let's see what happened. Team Brooks, well, they had a decent performance by Mecole Hardman and the Giants' defense. However, a -1 for Brandon McManus, who missed his only opportunity to get a point inside that game. After the one touchdown scored by Denver, he missed the extra point. And in this league, you miss a point after attempt, you get a -1 point because you shouldn't be missing those. Let's see, anyone else? Taven Austin actually, almost did 4 times as well as what was expected with an 8. David Johnson, 0.2. Not a good game for him. Let's see, and Lamar Jackson met expectations, and yeah, that's about it. And for the groupies, let's see what went right. Great performance by Ezekiel Elliott, one of his better scores of the season. Great score by T.Y. Hilton with a 19.4. And Bills defense met expectations. Zane Gonzalez met expectations. Everyone else, Terry McLaurin, a very anticipated pickup from a trade, didn't do too well. Let's take a look at the bench, shall we? Mari Cooper had a good week this week and would have been a better option than either of his chosen wide receivers. However, Chase Edmonds had a game with David Johnson. I guess he got hurt or something. I don't know. Let's take a look. Nope, can't do that. See what happened. Anyone? Good deal of frustration. Wow. Yeah, that's surprising. That's today's. Yeah. I guess he was an emergency backup. So yeah, he was. I guess he was hurting some. I guess his ankle was hurting him, so he was limited. And they let Chase Edmonds go crazy. And Edmonds put up one hell of a score with a 36. That would have been better, but is what it is. And let's take a look at the groupies. Jaguars defense would have been a better choice than the Bills. Demaryius Thomas would have been better. Randall Cobb would have been better. Let's see. LaShawn McCoy would have been better than Melvin Gordon. Because this game, Austin Eckler took control. But overall, Grumpy Groupies, 109.2, beating Team Brooks, 61.5. Up next, Erie Cucaracha Roach versus Bartson on the Sekki, with Erie Cucaracha Roach taking this one with a 2-point victory. I believe that is our closest matchup of the season, taking this one 73-71 in a battle between two of the lower records in the league. Roach came out on top. Let's see what happened. For parts unknown, Vikings defense did not come to play today, or that game. Everyone else, decent performance by Jamal Williams, posting up the second highest score for the team. Or no, third highest. With the top score going to Eric Ebron with a 17, followed by Tom Brady. And let's take a look at Erie Cucaracha Roach. What went right for them? DeAndre Hopkins had a game, 26.6. Followed by Russell Wilson, followed by Julian Edelman. Falcons with, I believe, their second negative score of the season with a -2. Oof. May want to be searching for another defense, hopefully soon. But then again, looking at the bench, he has the 49ers defense, which surprisingly was left on the bench this week against an anemic Washington offense. But management decisions. And thankfully for him, it didn't affect the end result. But that would have been a nice plus 15 points. And along with Kenny Stills, Kenny Stills wouldn't have been as much of an improvement. Corey Davis, though, would have. He had 20 points on the bench. And, that's about it. So, either way, all things said and done, Erie Cucaracha Roach taking this one 73 over Bartson on the Sekki, who got 71. Up next, we have Greensburg Honor versus Metropolis Kryptonite. With a lot of moves done by Kryptonite last week, unfortunately did not pay off. Greensburg Honor getting his third win of the season with 109.4 to 83.7. Both of these teams, I believe, were active in the trade market over the past week. So let's see what happened. For Metropolis Kryptonite, Saints defense did a good job. Deshaun Watson didn't meet expectations, but he still led the team in points. Philip Dorsett beat his score, and with Josh Gordon out, I have a feeling that Dorsett's going to be Could be a lot more important inside that Patriots offense. But overall, Zach Ertz not so good. Matt Breida not so good. James White met expectations. So rather average performance. But still failed to meet expectations, posting an 83.7 compared to a 101.8 projected. And however, Greensburg Honor exceeded projections. And being led by Sonny Michael with 22.4 points. Definitely taking control over the running game over James White. Gardner Minshew, the recently obtained from Metropolis Kryptonite, taking 21 points against his former team. Cardinals defense put up a good show against the Giants. And an Austin Hooper still doing Austin Hooper things. Derrick Henry also doing well. So overall, a pretty decent performance by Greensburg Honor. Let's see if anyone on the bench could have helped. Well, Derek Carr would have been a better choice than Deshaun Watson this week, though not by much. T.J. Hawkinson would have been a better choice than Zach Ertz, not by much. And Darius Slayton would have been better off on the bench. And with the rest of his team, with A.J. Green, Marquise Brown, Jared Cook, all getting zeros when they weren't on buys. So good thing they were on the bench. Greensburg Honor, Andy Dalton did a good job for the first time of the season. But nope, not enough to beat Gardner Minshew. Definitely an improvement. And Mark Andrews didn't beat Hooper. And Joe Mixon with a 7.4. Nope. So yeah, this is Greensburg's best score possible for the week. And it was more than enough to beat Metropolis Kryptonite. 109.4 to 83.7. And finally for this week, we have the Columbus Rebels versus the Big Guys Gunners. And the Columbus Rebels taking a surprise performance, posting 116.2 over the Gunners, 81.3 for the Rebels' second win of the season. Well, if you're going to go into the midseason bump, might as well go off on a high note, right? So let's see what went right. Phillip Rivers with a good game. Stefan Diggs with a good game. Not as incredible as last week, but still extremely good. But being led the way in an Alvin Kamara-less offense, Latavius Murray shined with 33 points, which made up for not even putting in a defense, not taking the risk with a backup defense, even though they were facing Seahawks. Thought it was better just to keep them off, which cost them 1.5 points, but overall didn't really affect them that much. And Trey Burton not so good, but kicker did well. But yeah, led the way by Latavius Murray, followed by Phillip Rivers and Stefan Diggs. And let's see what went wrong for the Gunners. Well, putting in Matt Ryan was a poor choice, with him throwing up a minus 2.4 by coughing up fumbles and interceptions, and not really doing well enough to negate that. However, Allen Robinson did a good job with a 24.7. Oh, and I'm reminded, Packers defense, even though they cruised to a 42-24 victory, they let up enough points and didn't do enough to negate a negative score. So two negative scores for the Big Guys Gunners this week of a minus 2.4 and a minus 2.5. And unfortunately, while that really wouldn't have been enough for him to get a victory, it certainly didn't help his cause. But Allen Robinson led the way, followed by Aaron Jones and Tyler Lockett. Let's see what the bench could have helped out with. Well, Cowboys would have been a good choice for once, even though they weren't expected to do so well against Philadelphia. But apparently the Philadelphia defense is still like Swiss cheese, and Cowboys put up 17 defensive points in fantasy points. And D.D. Westbrook would have been a slightly better improvement than Lockett. But on the bright side, that minus 2.5 from Matt Ryan was actually the better choice, considering Sam Darnold put up a negative 7.7. Had he put that in, that would have been in the running for the lowest starting score of the season. But he didn't. Smart move putting him on the bench. So, yeah. And, Cole Beasley would have been a nice choice, though it wouldn't have been better than his current starters. What else? Nope. So, yeah. Columbus Rebels getting their second win of the season, beating the Big Guys Gunners 116.2 to 81.3. So, let's take a look at current standings. Current standings has a Talk about a difference in 2 worlds between the 2 divisions, with a 4-way tie for first place in the Roddy Rowdies, with the Sharks currently in the lead, followed by Moneymaker Dollar Boys, followed by Sniper's Edge Darkstalkers, followed by Feelin Chubby, all with a 5-2 record, followed by Planet Hulk World Breakers, who's fallen from grace, along with Greensburg Honor and bringing up the rear is Metropolis Kryptonite. Oof. That is a tough division. And if the World Breakers were still had Mahomes doing well, they could have been up there too. It honestly could have been a 5-way tie. But yeah, right now we have 4 teams that are 5-2 in the Roddy Rowdies, compared to the 1 5-2 team in the Rude Brood, where Prettyboy Snow is currently leading the way, followed by Grumpy Groupies, Team Brooks, Erie Cucaracha Roach, Big Guys Gunners, Bartson on the Sekki, and bringing up the rear is the Columbus Rebels, even though now there is a 3-way tie for last place in the division, with the Rebels have the lowest amount of points and the Gunners have the most out of the group. So yeah, now that that's done, let's take a look at our projected playoff bracket. It is safe to assume that every single one of the 5-2 teams would be in the playoffs if the season ended today, with the Grumpy Groupies taking up the final spot with a 4-3 record. So yeah, there's that. Yep, Shaggy Sharks and Prettyboy Snow, both being division leaders, get the 2 bye spots. So it pays to win your division. And then the rest of the cluster here is 3rd place, current in the 3rd seed, number 3 seed, Moneymaker Dollar Boys, number 4 seed, Sniper's Edge Darkstalkers, number 5 seed, Feelin Chubby, and number 6 seed is Grumpy Groupies. What I probably should have done is make 7 playoff spots and have the lower division winner have to actually play in. But I didn't. I'm not going to change it now because we are halfway through the season. And yeah, we'll see how it goes. So let's take a look at some other fun little tidbits here. Oh, that's week 8. Well, you know what? Let's go into our week 8 predictions first, before I go into all the fun little mid-season awards. So for next week, we have Sniper's Edge Darkstalkers versus the Big Guys Gunners. The Gunners are coming off a tough loss last week, so we will see if they will be able to come back and come out strong on this one. But it's going to be tough, considering they're currently projected at 84 points, but I believe that's because he hasn't replaced some of the buys, and there are some waiver claims in order. Same thing with the Darkstalkers. We also have Planet Hulk World Breakers versus Team Brooks, where Team Brooks may need to switch up some of his team, otherwise his projected total is a 31, or correction, a 32. So, yeah. Another matchup, Metropolis Kryptonite versus Bartson on the Sekki. Both teams, I believe, are going to be looking for a redemption win after this one, with Kryptonite getting shellacked last week, and Bartson on the Sekki getting hit by a 2-point loss. We also have Greensburg Honor versus Columbus Rebels. The 2 teams that took the longest to get their first win are now facing off, where Greensburg Honor is projected to win this one, 116.2 to 79.3. We also have Feelin Chubby versus Erie Cucaracha Roach. Chubby coming off a tough loss, while Roach coming off a very close win. So we'll see how that goes. We have a highly anticipated matchup between the Moneymaker Dollar Boys and the Grumpy Groupies, with the Dollar Boys projected to win this one by a nice 20-point margin. And finally, we have the Shaggy Sharks versus Prettyboy Snow, where, looking at the team, Shaggy Sharks had 2 players go down last week. And conveniently enough, facing Prettyboy Snow, the team that has the lowest, the team that may be 5-2, who just seems to be getting favorable matchups every single week. But we'll see if that continues on. And judging by the injuries, good luck, Sharks. Hopefully you can break that curse there. So yeah, out of all the current starting players, the one that is projected to score the most points is by 0.1 point, Deshaun Watson is currently projected to have the highest score of individual players. So, there you have it for that. And up next, I got some fun little tidbits for everyone here. Since it is the mid-season, let me just quickly boot myself up a little bigger again. And at the same time, let me throw in fun little factoids. I took some time today and calculated a couple mid-season things, whether it be highest overall points so far, lowest overall points. So basically, I picked the top things and bottom things for the midway point through the season. So let's go. You know what? Should I do the top or the bottom first? Well, let's get the lower parts out of the way first. For the bottom, the lowest overall points for the season goes to the Columbus Rebels, who have scored a total of 579.1 points for the season. For an individual week, the lowest overall score, we have a tie. In week 5, the Columbus Rebels put up a minuscule 51 points, along with Feelin Chubby in week 7, who also put up 51 points in their matchup. Who has the so yeah, that's actually a pretty interesting bound. These are the two lowest scores. You can be safe to say that teams will generally score higher than 50 points. Let's see who has the lowest points against, as in who's had the easiest schedule so far. As mentioned before, that would be Prettyboy Snow, whose team has only faced 577 points against him, which has led to him to have a nice 5-2 victory. In the standings overall, even though the overall points might tell one story, sometimes that's not the case in terms of the standings. But in this case, it correlates pretty well in that the lowest total number of points goes to, or the lowest spot in the standings goes to, the Columbus Rebels. In total number of moves, Bartson on the Sekki only has done 2 moves through the entire season. So either he's not really that active, or he likes his team. Who knows? All right, now let's go into the individual starting player who put up the lowest score, who actually made it to a starting lineup. Well, that would be from week 1. Team Brooks starting the Jacksonville defense, who put up a wonderfully low -8 points. Lucky him. So, the other one. Closest matchup of the season. We have the Erie Cucaracha Roach, who put a 73 over Bartson on the Sekki, who put a 71. That would be our closest margin of the season of a 2-point margin of victory. For the second place would be a 2.4 margin of victory for the Groupies versus Erie over the Erie Cucaracha Roach of a 2.4 point margin. And third place goes to the Moneymaking Dollar Boys over Sniper's Edge Darkstalkers in week 6, who won by a margin of 2.6. Now, here's an interesting little factoid I decided to figure out. Who has the lowest positive point margin? That's the point margin is basically points for compared to the points against. I essentially subtracted points for. I subtracted the number of points against versus from the number of points for. So that gave me a number. It shows that it shows a couple of things. Basically, it shows which teams have been doing better, generally have been doing better in terms of winning scores. So it's generally those who have a positive ratio tend to win more of their games, and those who have a negative ratio tend to not. So let's see. For this particular stat, who has the lowest positive points for points against margin? Why, that would be Prettyboy Snow, where basically his points for minus his points against are 80.3. That's actually surprisingly high. But on the opposite end of the spectrum, who has the lowest negative, or correction, who has the smallest positive ratio and who has the smallest negative ratio? I'm not talking about the max. I'm not talking about the outer bounds. I'm talking about who has the closest negative margin of victory and who has the closest positive margin of victory. Closest positive margin would be a surprisingly large 80.3 points. However, on the opposite side of the spectrum, the negative spectrum, Erie, Cucaracha, Roach, his margin is a negative 4.5. That is insanely close, especially given that all these scores are in triple digits, nearing 1,000 in the bigger areas. So a minus 4.5, he is almost even in terms of his points for and points against. I think being a numbers geek, that's insane for me. And who has the lowest points for with a positive ratio? Why, that would be Prettyboy Snow, who has only scored 658 points, yet is still in a positive ratio. It just so happens that it also correlates with the slimmest positive margin of victory. And looking at the stats, there are only like 4 or 5 teams out of the 14 who are in a positive ratio. It's kind of incredible. So, all right, but yeah, now with the lower things out of the way, let's get to the big ones. Who has the most overall points for the season? Why, that would be the Shaggy Sharks, who have decimated opponents with an 850.5 total amount of points. So his team has been scoring pretty well. You facing the Sharks, chances are it's going to be a high-scoring game. And who has the highest single-week score? Why, that would also be the Shaggy Sharks, who in week 2 posted up 195.1 points. No one has hit the 200-point margin. So a safe bound would be teams would be scoring above 50 points, but below 200 points. So you can safely say that the scores will be, every single score has been sandwiched within those two bounds. So who has the most points against them in the league? Why, that would be Metropolis Kryptonite, who has seemed to have bad schedule luck, where opposing teams have hit him for 836.6 points. But in the overall standings, well, Shaggy Sharks, it generally correlates that if you score the most points, you will generally be in first place, barring matchups. But overall, it does correlate for this in this particular instance. So Shaggy Sharks, they are the current number 1 overall seed at the midpoint of the season. Who has made the most moves in the season? Why, that would be the Grumpy Groupies, who have made 32 moves this season. In terms of individual starting players, why, in week 7, Aaron Rodgers broke the record by posting 54.8 points in week 7 for the Darkstalkers. This is an additional little stat that I decided to add. Which team had an individual player that scored the most points while on the bench? In week 2, Prettyboy Snow benched Austin Eckler, who went for 40.4 points. That is our highest individual bench score. I could have calculated total bench points, but that would have taken me a lot more time than I had. Maybe I'll do it for the end of the season. Probably not. But if you want to do it, go right ahead. And if you do, be sure to tell me and I'll list it. By the way, every single one of these is going to be listed on the league page as well. Who had our biggest blowout victory? That would be the Shaggy Sharks, putting 195.1 over Metropolis Kryptonite in week 2, who only put up 70.7 points. That is our highest margin of victory of 124.4. That is nothing else even comes relatively close. Our second place margin would be the Sharks over Feelin Chubby with a 77.4 margin, which was the highest margin of victory for this week. Fun. interesting little tidbit. It seems that both the biggest margin of victory and the smallest margin of victory records both happened this week. And third place is a 65.5 margin of victory for the Moneymaking Dollar Boys over Prettyboy Snow, also in week 7. So this was an interesting week. It really was. All right, next little factoid: the highest for against margin for the season, that would be the Shaggy Sharks, who have put up 188.2 more points for than they did points against. And on the opposite end of the spectrum, Metropolis Kryptonite is at a negative 117.6. So it is safe to say that he has had the toughest schedule this season, where teams just seem to go nuts against him. And not only with the most points against, he has the highest negative margin. And, another little interesting thing. Who has the highest points for, who still is in a negative ratio? Why, that would be the Planet Hulk World Breakers, who have scored 765.3 points for, compared to a 776.3 points against for our slimmest margin of a negative margin, with a negative 11. So I just figured just a couple interesting little number facts for everyone could be a little bit fun, especially being that it's the midpoint of the season. So yeah. Well, that's it for our mid-season recap. For those who tuned in, thank you very much for watching. I appreciate anyone who has tuned in throughout the season. That's why I keep doing them. And hopefully the second half of the season could be just as exciting. Well, like I said, whoever tuned in, thank you very much for watching. Hope to see you again next time, and may the rolls ever be in your favor. Peace.